Hi everyone, welcome to... So this lesson is an illustration. I'm calling it Birdwalk, and it's a little picture of three birds taking a walk on a sidewalk with kind of a geometric background. It's inspired by just a couple elements that I put together. I saw a wall that was painted like this, and I'm actually working on a mural right now that has a fractured kind of background element like this. So it's in my head and I really like the look of it. So I thought I'd put it in an illustration. And then I was on Pinterest the other day and I saw some really beautiful bird drawings. So that inspired me to do a bird drawing. I'm adding a separate challenge at the end. I talk about it at the end of the video as well. But a writing element to this lesson because it has kind of a narrative tone to it, right? There's three characters. They're in a situation on a sidewalk, walking down a sidewalk. So I thought it might be fun at the end if you wanted to create a story around this picture. You in just a second. I wanted to just say for my younger artists, I make some modifications in the video, and you can add more detail if you're a younger artist if you want, or if you're done at a certain level, you can stop at that point and color it. Older students as well. Also, if you want to add things to the picture that aren't here, feel free. It's your picture. I think it would be a great idea. For instance, when I go out for walks now, I have to wear a mask. What if the birds were wearing a mask? Something like that. So let's begin today by folding our paper in quarters. So we're going to fold it over lengthwise and we're going to press it just a little bit. We don't want it to be pressed too hard because we don't want the crease to be too defined. So we're going to crease it over horizontally and then we'll turn it portrait style and we will fold it over again really kind of gently like this. So now we have our paper in quarters, right? 1 quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, 4 quarters. And we're going to start first by putting in our sidewalk that the birds are walking on. And I'm going to use around 2 fingers width from the bottom of the page to put mine in. My smaller, younger artists, we're just going to draw a horizontal line all the way across, and it doesn't have to be a really straight line. It can be a little bit wavy like mine made here. My younger artists who have smaller fingers might want to do like 3 fingers, but I'm going to use 2 because my fingers are larger. The next thing we want to do, so this is our sidewalk, and we want to lay our tallest bird in. Now our tallest bird is going to go on the left-hand side of that middle crease, right? Left-hand side. And we're going to start by taking, again, I'm going to take about 3 finger widths down. I'm going to put a little dot, and then I'm going to go 3 finger widths from the center crease, and I'm going to put another dot. And you see we have 2 little markers, and I'm going to use my whole width of my bird's neck. I'm doing the neck first. It's about 1.5 inches. Comes across like this, and it leaves a little bit of space before you get to that center crease. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a diagonal line from the neck heading down toward the sidewalk. Now today's lesson is going to feature a lot of different lines: horizontal line, vertical line, diagonal line, and a curved line, a circle, and kind of a U-shaped line. Okay, circle is a shape. So from all of our lines from our big bird are kind of going to start initially from the neckline that we put in. That's why the first one we put in. And we're going to end the tail feathers or the back of the bird about 2 inches above this sidewalk line. So I'm going to put a little dot there. And I'm going to hold my finger where I want the line to stop. It helps direct my pencil from the place I begin, diagonal line, all the way to the place I end, okay? That's the back of the bird and his tail feathers. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to determine a midpoint to that line we just drew. And we're going to take our pencil and we're going to, almost as if we were making a circle in this area, but we're going to stop before we make even a half circle. So we start here at the right hand side of the neck, and we're going to start our circle, but we're going to end it before we hit that midway point that we make. All right? From there, we're going to come straight down, vertical line, right? And we're going to go straight horizontal line. Now that's the bird's wings and his tail feathers, the tall birds. Next thing I want to make is a belly on the bird. So I'm going to again start at the right hand side of the neck, and I'm going to make, again, like if I was going to make a big circle, and I'm going to end by tucking it into this corner right here, right? So from there, in each of this, we have 2 more birds to do if you're an older student and want to do a family of birds. But if you're a kinder or first grader or perhaps second grader, you might only want to do 1 bird. But if you decide to do the other 2 birds, it's the same technique for drawing all 3 of the birds. So we're going to work on our legs next. So the birds are walking, so one leg is going to be straight down and the other leg is going to be at a diagonal as if the bird was taking a step. So we're going to start at the back of the bird's body, and we're going to kind of come straight down, and I'm going to go a little bit above halfway point of the sidewalk. And then I'm going to give just 3 lines for feet. And then the second one, because the bird is taking a step, I want to make a diagonal line, and it can come just below the sidewalk line. So it looks like the bird is taking a step. Okay, so next thing is the head and all the parts of the head, and then we're going to get to the feathers on the wings and tail feathers. So the head starts almost as an extension of this diagonal line, and it's going to come up at a slight diagonal, and then it's going to curve over like an egg shape and end at the other end of the neck, right? So let's try that again. It's kind of an egg shape, starts as if it was following this diagonal line all the way up, curves around, and ends at the neck. So I'm going to pretend to draw this line again. When I reach here, I'll put my pencil down, follow that line all the way up, and end at the right hand side of the neck. And then I like to give my tall bird with his tall legs a nice long beak. So I'm going to make a long beak that's just a kind of it looks like I'm creating a sideways triangle kind of. And then at the top, I'm going to give him a circle for an eye. All right, so here's all those shapes that we went over, right? Horizontal line, vertical line, diagonal line, curved line, a circle shape, and a U line. All right, last thing we're going to do is we're going to put in the feathers. So my first feather shape is going to start again in this corner, and it's going to go diagonal all the way till it hits that midway dot that we put on there when we were making this first wing line. So we're going to start in the corner. My finger's going to be where I'm going to end, and I'm going to draw the line till it hits my finger. Right? That's a diagonal line, kind of creates a triangular shape. The next one is going to come, I'm just going to come out, start again right where I started before in that nook right hand side of the neck. I'm going to come down a little bit more straight, but a diagonal line again. And then I'm going to just go straight up until it meets that first line I drew. Now I'm going to go again. This time I'm going to go halfway down this line I just drew. Put a little dot there. And I'm going to take my line straight down all the way till it hits the end of the wing. All right? We're drawing feathers on the wing. So this last line that I'm going to put in this area is going to be a V shape. It's going to start in the middle of this area here. It's going to end in the middle of this area here. And it's going to touch the bottom here. So I'm going to start by coming all the way down to there, go all the way down here. All right? Then I want to make a couple of more feathers at the back and some tail feathers. So I'm going to put one line going at a diagonal kind of parallel to this line. I'm going to start a little bit up from the point. I'm going to just take it as a straight diagonal all the way to the end. And then I'm going to do just 2 lines going down at a slight diagonal. 1. Second one starts at the same one. 2. And there's my bird, my big bird, all done. Okay, and you can slow this down, stop the video, start it, just to put these lines in at your pace, okay? I'm going rather fast, but you can slow the video down by just pausing it and starting again. So for my kinders and first grades and some second graders, this may be enough. You may be done with your bird and you want to go straight to your background. That's fine. I would fast forward the video until you start seeing me lay in lines of the background. What I'm going to do is to continue on, put in my other two birds. I'll do them very fast for my older students who want to do that. I'm going to change the wing decor up a little bit on my other two birds, and you can follow me, or you can keep the same one we just put in here. It's up to you. But I'm going to follow the same structure that we did to make this tall bird. Okay, so my second bird is my medium bird, and the head of the medium bird is going to sit, a little bit of the wing and head is going to sit above this horizontal line, a little bit above. So right in the middle, if I find the middle of that horizontal line and I give myself maybe 2 fingers up, that's going to be where the neckline is. And I'm just going to do a little bit smaller than this bird, but around an inch of a neckline, a horizontal neckline. And then I'm going to bring my diagonal back of the bird wing down, and I will not hit the bottom. I want to go a little bit lower than this one, but I still don't want to hit the sidewalk. And then again we find the middle, and then we start up at the right hand side of the neck. We bring a half circle around and stop before we hit that dot. And then I like to make a little flare going out for this bird's tail feathers instead of going straight down. And I like this bird to have a little bit more of a rounded body, so I'm going to give that bird a little bit more of a rounded body. And then I'm going to, I think we did the feet first, so I'm going to do this bird's feet because I just want to make a little difference between each bird. So I'm going to make this bird's feet a little bit more curved. Come a little bit lower than this bird's foot. And then my second one will be similar to this, kind of in a marching, as if the bird's marching. Right? And then I'm going to do the head the same way I did this, as if I'm continuing this diagonal. I'm going to come up and circle around until I hit the neck here. And notice it's kind of an egg shape, kind of, but it's also kind of like a tilted egg shape. And I'm going to make this bird's beak kind of as if he was looking up a little bit. Make the eye up there. Now for this bird's wings, I'm going to do a little bit different design, so it differs from this one. I'm going to start by, again in the corner, I'm going to make a rounded line instead of a straight line, but I'm going to hit this dot again. And then I'm going to do that 3 more times from the same spot, moving up the back of the bird. All right? So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Okay? And then I'm going to make the 2 tail feathers coming down. So the same we did here, I'm going to take this last feather here, the first feather that we put in. I'm going to start a line that goes straight down. Then I do another one a little bit at a diagonal, so we have kind of like a skinnier line, a wider line, and a medium line. And then in this section, I'm going to do 2 lines, right? Both starting up here. I'm going to start up here, and I'm going to come right down and end on one of those tail feather lines. My last one is going to start up here. It's going to try to go right in the middle, and it's going to end right at that point. Okay? So there's my middle bird. Now I just have my little bird to be over here. So this is my last quarter of this page. So my little bird has this little space right here to be in. I want to make the little bird's neck just below the line of this tail feather here. So just below the line, and it has to be in the middle of this space. So if I go just below that line, and I give my little bird a smaller neck. Okay? And then instead of making a straight line down his back, I'm going to make a curved line. Again, just trying to change things up. And then instead of doing a 2-part tail feather, I'm going to do just another curved line that meets up at that point. Now, my body will be the same. We'll start from the right-hand side of the neck. It's going to come all the way around and touch the tail feathers. And let me erase this. Okay. I'm going to make my bird's feet a little different on this one. Instead of just making straight lines, I'm going to make like V's. One V at the back of the body and a shorter V at the front. And that makes it look like the bird is on a diagonal, right? So these feet are actually the same size in real life, but in the picture we make them look a little shorter so it looks like the bird's in space, right, in a three-dimensional kind of way. And let's put some toes on those birds. And then this time I'm going to make his head following this line in a diagonal because I want this bird looking back. This is the change I was making. I'm going to make a little beak, and I'm going to make another circle line on this one. Now for his wings, I want to do his wings a little different from the other two wings, just so they each are like separate characters. And this is where that kind of U shape comes in, that U shape line. I'm going to do about 5 of them. 1, and they can be different sizes. 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, and then I'll do the same thing in another row, only I'm going to start right tucked up here in between the two, come down, go up to the in between, down, up. And for my tail feathers, I'm just going to start at one point. I take this point, go all the way to the back, and then maybe I'll start up here and go all the way to the back. So there's my 3 birds. Now I need to put in the background. So I'm going to do a background for my younger students, my kinders, my first graders, and my second graders possibly. That is a little less faceted, right? Remember we started with this, and we have a lot of different triangles and shapes, different shapes in here, but I'm going to make a more simplified one for my younger students, and then I'll do another one that's a little bit more faceted for my older students who want a little bit more challenge. So for my younger students, I'm going to start with creating a diagonal line that just splits the paper, right? It's going to start, think about it coming straight through this middle part, right? And I want to start at maybe 3 or 4 fingers. If you're smaller, you might want to use 4 fingers, which is almost like the center of this section up here. And I'm going to do a diagonal line all the way till it hits the sidewalk, right? And I want to put my finger where I want it to hit. It's going to come all the way through, it goes right through that center and hits. All right, so now I've divided my background into 2 spaces. And I want to divide this one into 3 spaces total. So I want 1, 2, 3 spaces for this side of the background. So I'm going to start somewhere close to the middle of this line. And I'm going to make a diagonal line coming up. I don't want to cross through the bird right yet, and it's going to end somewhere up here. So I'm going to put my finger up here. I'm going to start on that dot, and I'm going to take a diagonal line all the way up till it hits my finger, goes off the page. So now I have 2 spaces, and I want to break it up one more time. So I am going to make another line from this, the line I just made, and I'm going to have it come down to the sidewalk. Right, so I want it to come down to about here, and now this time I am going to have to go through the bird, but I want to jump the bird. Okay, what I mean is I'm going to start here, I'm going to make my line, start coming at a diagonal. When I hit the bird, I'm going to pick my pencil. There we go. Then it looks like it's a separate background and not part of the bird. So now I have 1, 2, 3 sections in my background, and I want to do the same thing to this side. So I'm going to start by doing one line. I'm going to start it here, and I'm going to have a diagonal all the way to the end of the page, right? So I want my finger to be where I'm going to end my line. I'm going to start right in the middle of the page, and I'm going to go at a diagonal, like the line's laying on its side, right? When I hit the bird, I want to jump over the bird, go to the other side of the bird's body, and keep my diagonal line going until I hit the top of the page. So now I have 2 sections, and I want 3 sections in this area, so I need 1 more line. And I'm going to start here, and I'm going to go through. I think I'll jump the bird and come down here. Okay, so I want to put my finger where I want to end, which is right here. I'm going to start just like 1 finger's length away from the bird's wing. And I'm going to come at a diagonal. When I hit the bird, I'm going to jump over the bird, start again, and hit my finger. All right? So that is my kindergarten background, or first grader, or possibly second grader background. So for my older students, we're going to put a few more lines. So after you've put 3 birds in, you're going to start laying in your background. So this is going to go, I'm going to go relatively fast doing this. It's just a system of diagonal lines, either horizontal, not so many vertical lines, but just maybe a couple of horizontal lines and diagonal lines, right? And I'm going to start with one, and every other line is going to kind of, for the most part, come off of the line I just do. So let me show you what that means. So my first, I want to kind of start by dividing these areas in 2. And I'm going to start right in the middle of this quarter page at the very top. And I want to make a diagonal line that comes down, doesn't hit the bird's body, but ends on his tail feathers. So what I want to do, I put a little dot here to show myself, but also if I hold my finger there, I can start up here and I just track my pencil all the way till it hits my finger, right? So that's your first line. Second line is going to come off of this line. It's going to go straight across above the bird's head. Don't go through the bird's head. And it's pretty horizontal all the way to the end of the page. Okay? From there, I'm going to divide this line almost in half. Let's say we take it right at the half point. And we're going to bring this line all the way and tuck it into this corner where our first line ended. I find that having my finger where my pencil's supposed to end up really helps me. All right, so then I'm going to start again where I began with this line we just put in, and I'm going to end it just above the sidewalk. So if you want to, you can put a little line. I'm going to start here. This time I'm going to have to jump over the bird's beak. 1, jump over the bird's beak, and come all the way down. My line's a little curved, but that's okay. All right, next one. I want to connect this area and this area. So I'm going to make a line that's kind of almost horizontal, but it's not. It has a little bit of a diagonal on it. And I'm going to have to jump through the bird's tail feathers. It doesn't matter that it crosses over their legs because I'm going to Sharpie their legs in. So don't worry about the making your lines through the legs. So I'm going to start here, and let's say I want to end around here. Okay? So I'm going to put a little dot there. It's going to be hard for me to keep my finger there, but I could like this. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to jump over the bird's tail feathers, and I'm going to go there. All right? So from there, I'm going to create a system of lines on the bottom here. I want to start where I ended right here, and I want to make a diagonal line all the way till it hits the sidewalk. 1. All right? I'm going to do the same thing right where this line touches the tail feathers. I'm going to make a nice diagonal till it hits the sidewalk. And then I'm going to do another line from the end of the bird's tail feathers to where this one ended. So as you can see, I'm kind of building on each line I do. I either start where I started the last line or I end where I ended the last line. So the last thing I want to do is I'm going to start another one from this one where this one ended or began and tuck into the corner right here of the sidewalk. So I'm going to start here. I've got to jump over my bird. I'm going to end. So you can see how the facets are starting to come out in the background. All right, from here, I'm going to make a fresh line that's not connected to these ones I've been drawing. And I'm going to start first by coming up here and then coming down, and then I'll connect these last few lines. So this first line that we've drew, I'm going to come down maybe 2 fingers down. I want to stay above the bird's beak, and I want to end on the top of the page at a diagonal. Right? And then I want to do the same thing from here where I actually, let's drop it just a little bit to make it interesting. Drop it, don't take it where I ended, take it down maybe 1/4 of an inch. And then I want to run a diagonal line that ends just above this midline. And I have a few more lines to make. I'm going to make one that comes off the bird's head and hits about here, because I want to break this space up a little bit. And then I have about 1, 2, 3 more lines, and then I'm done. So I'm going to make one more line from here to just above the bird's. Actually, what do I want to do? Yeah, I'm gonna do one that hits in the corner, so I might have to jump the top of the bird's head. So I'm gonna make a line all the way down, come over. It's kind of funny how it interrupts the beak. I'm not sure if I like that, but it is what it is. And then my last 2 lines are gonna start in this corner where this line began, come back, touch the back of the bird's tail feathers, and then start where I touch the bird's tail feathers and end just above the small bird's head. All right? So I know that went really quickly. Hopefully you stopped and started the video as you needed, but now you have your facet pattern laid in. All right? So the next thing we want to do before we get to color, though, is to lay in our birds and our cement line of the sidewalk with Sharpie marker. We won't Sharpie the background lines at all. We're only Sharpieing the line of the sidewalk. And remember, when I get to my bird, I have to jump over my bird. And then we're going to Sharpie each one of the birds, okay? If you're my younger students and you just did one bird, you're just Sharpieing in your one bird, and then you're done. And I'm gonna follow the Sharpie pattern that I drew, right? So I'm gonna do it just as I drew it. Put a dot in here for the eye. Legs. All right, one bird Sharpied in. So I'll go ahead and do the other 2 birds, Sharpieing them, and then we'll meet back and we'll start with the coloring of the background and how we're going to do that, okay? I just took a black ballpoint pen and I made these lines so that they wouldn't be quite so heavy as this black Sharpie marker. And then I kind of made, you can kind of have fun with the sidewalk with the same ballpoint pen, or you can use a pencil to do it if you want to too. I'll show you what a pencil looks like if you press hard. And you can put some, like maybe some weeds growing up, drew some of the cracks. Here I put some, like a dandelion growing up through here. And you can put another dandelion right? Is that like grass? You know, grass is always growing through the cracks. Okay. And then what I did is I did this with my ballpoint pen again, is I just kind of speckled the sidewalk a little bit to make it look like it has maybe some pebbles on it, or it's just not so perfectly clean. You could even put a little crack in it. Let's try a little crack with the ballpoint pen. Not pressing hard enough. Trying to put a little slight crack. It's up to you. The cracks are up to you. Optional. Cracks are optional. Okay. So sidewalk's done. Now it's the color time. So everyone, this is the halfway point of the lesson. The drawing portion is over, and I just wanted to give an opportunity for my younger students to move on in a different way than my older students. So if you're finished at this point, you feel like you just want to get to the coloring, my kindergartners, first graders, some second graders, feel free to grab at least 2 to 3 crayon colors or colored pencils for the background. So use maybe 2 to 3 different colors for the background. And if you have ballpoint pens, grab a couple of different colors of ballpoint pens for the birds. If not, crayons or colored pencils for the birds will do just fine. Just pick different colors than you use for the background, okay? And have fun, enjoy yourself, and if you're one of my community students, and you can post it on Fresh School so I can see. After you're done with the coloring, if you wish, there's a little extra bonus. You can create a story about your 3 birds. So I have 3 questions here that you can answer, and you can answer just on the back of your assignment. What are their names? So give them names. Where are they going? And why is the little bird looking back? So if you feel like creating a story about your 3 birds walking down the sidewalk, be my guest. That sounds fun. I'd love to read them. If not, just have fun coloring it, and I'll see you next class. Bye, guys. If you are up for a little more of a challenge, maybe you're one of my older students in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade or older, or maybe some second graders, you can continue with the lesson as we move into the color portion of it. So I first wanted to go over how we had done the original sample that I showed you. My 3 birds are done in ballpoint pen, and I like the ballpoint pen because it has a nice fine line, and the color's a little bit more intense, and it makes the birds pop a little bit more against the background. So if you have different colored ballpoint pens, even if it's just black or red, like I have here, or black or blue, if you're lucky, pick only 2 pen colors for the birds. The background, I used colored pencils, and I like the way colored pencils are a little softer, so they don't compete with the bird coloring. So I started with picking a primary color. I picked yellow, and then I picked 2 other colors that are in the yellow family. So I have like a limey green and a moss green. So try to pick 3 colors for your background that are related to each other. Colors in the purple family, in the blue family, in the yellow family, your choice. And then pick 2 different colors for the birds. I am going to change it up this time, and I'm going to use for my background colored pencils again, but in the blue family. And then for my birds, I'm going to do gel pens. I have some gel pens, and I'm going to use in the orange family for the birds. Possibly you want to make the background kind of all one color, and I'll show you a sample of if I use just a pencil on my background, how I can make 3 different types of gray using just a pencil. And then my bird can be all different colors. And I'm going to show you a little tiny sample I did of that. So I was just kind of playing around with different ways you could do it. And another option I thought is if you wanted to make the bird super colorful, you might want to make the background more monochromatic or one color in the gray family. And the best way to do that is just to use a regular old pencil, right? And then you can see how the birds pop and the background just kind of fades away. So the pencil is going to be super, you're going to have to work with it a little bit, but it's one tool. And what you're going to do is you're going to try to make a light color, a medium color, and a dark color. So if I was to work from here down, I might want to start doing a medium color. So I would kind of work at a press on it a little bit, but not too heavy, right? So we have kind of a more medium shade from this light one. And then if I wanted to make this area maybe kind of light, I barely pressed with my pencil. Barely pressed with my pencil. Right, so medium and light. And then let's say I want to make a section here super dark. Then I have to press pretty hard with my pencil. So that's an option for the background. Dark, medium, light, using a pencil, all right? Or the other thing to do if you don't want to use 3 colors and just use a color family like I did, would be to color every space a different color and then do like maybe just make the birds black and white so they really pop against this really colorful background. So that's 3 different types of color choices you have, right? I'm going to do it like I did on my sample. I'll choose a different color family, but I'm going to do it like I did on my sample a little bit too. So I have my 3 colors, and what you'll notice on this guy is it's important not to try to get the same color in 2 different spaces where there's too big of a connecting line. Right? So if I had yellow here and I put yellow here, it would start to make this whole shape look like it's one shape instead of 2. So how I did that for myself is I just used one color at a time and I started from one side of the page and I worked all the way to the other side of the page so that I wouldn't put 2 colors right next to each other as much as possible. Now there is some overlapping like in this area, but it's so small that it doesn't take away from the fact that there's 2 different shapes. And what I did here also is I just pressed a little harder to make this one look a little darker than that. You can't help but have a couple of areas that do that, but also the line of the pencil will help kind of separate those spaces. But just something to keep in mind. Now, you want the color of the birds and the color of the backgrounds to be different so that there's a contrast and so that they look different. And what's most important is the birds. So the birds should always pop out more. The birds have more organic kind of curvy shapes, and this is very geometric. So I like the contrast of that, and I want the colors to be the same way. So for mine, I'm doing blue and orange basically, which are complementary opposites, right? Blues for the background, oranges for the birds. For this one I did greens and yellows and reds because reds is a nice kind of complement to greens and yellowy greens. So as I start my background, I'm going to start with one color. Here's my blue. And I'm going to try to go on one direction. Always, we do this a lot in class, where when we're coloring something, we're mindful that we're not going to go in different directions with our pencil because this geometric pattern is already very active, right? And it has direction to it. And if we add to that with a scratchy pencil application, it will kind of make it, I think, a little too busy and distracting. So let's try to keep our pencils all in one direction. And you can kind of use the side of the pencil. As you can see, I'm using the side of the pencil. Or a crayon will work too. And the reason why I'm using pencils or colored pencils or crayons is because they finish this up. I have a funky shape showing through from something that's underneath. They're, again, a different material than the ballpoint pen. And if we do markers, markers are so strong that they kind of take focus. So I like the softer effect or a crayon, okay? So the harder you press, the darker it is, right? I can make it a little darker if I want. The harder I press. I'm going to make it a little darker. All right. Now, instead of taking this one and doing some other ones around, I hold on that. I put this one down and I start with another one because I don't want to get to the point where I've done, you know, a few scattered ones all around. And then when I get to the very end, I notice that some of my options are only to put the same color into sections, thereby making it look, again, like a big section. So I'm going to do this one at a time. So now I have 2 sections on this plane, on this side of the color. So the best thing to do is to make sure I'm going to use my 2 leftover colors in both of those sections, okay? So I'll start with my light greenish one in here. And I'll use my other one, it's called True Blue, on this. And hopefully, so this is a little darker blue, so I'm going to press a little darker because I want that contrast. I don't want it to look too much like the other blue I have. And I like that one of the colors can be really dark and the other 2 can be kind of a medium color, a medium value, right? The lightness and darkness of a color. Right. So now, on this side of this shape, I have these 2 areas, right, to color. So I don't want to use this one again here because then I'll have 2 sections the same color right next. So I know I'm going to use the color I used here, right here. This is what I mean by you have to kind of really do it slow and each color at a time. I'm going to color all this area in. Right. Press dark, and then I want this lighter green right here. Right, and then so then I have one more area kind of pointing up against this one. So as you can imagine, I'm going to want the blue that I used here to be used here, right? Because it's going to butt up against these 2, and it has to be different than one of these 2. So here's my third color. It's the one I originally used here, and I'm going to put that lay it right on in here. On and on. You're going to do that as you continue to go. All right. So obviously this triangle here, we have this color. We have my True Blue here, and we have this color here. So the color I want to put in the middle here is this one, right? It's the same color I used here. So I'm going to do that. So now the background's finished. And what I did is I took my darkest color. So for me, it was this True Blue color, which made this. And I went through all my line work again, and I redrew my line work in with this dark color. I just thought it kind of looked kind of clean and gave it a little bit more cohesion, kind of made it all come together and look really solid in the background. And I don't think it was dark enough to really take away from the birds. So I would recommend, if you didn't already think of this yourself, is to take the darker background color, the darkest background color, and just quickly go over your line work again with that. But I'm done with my background now, and it's time to get to the birds. So I've got all the sidewalks pretty much laid in. It's just a light color with some spots and some weeds. If you want to, you can do a light shading with some pencil. I'm just thinking about this as I do it, just because it kind of makes, not a lot, just a little bit, some little squiggly lines around. Kind of just makes the white of the sidewalk not so prominent, not pop out so much. Kind of grounds it a little bit. Okay, so just a little dusting with a pencil. Now our birds. So you'll notice me bring this one back again. You'll notice for each of the birds, they're the same colors I'm using, red and black, but I'm giving them a different treatment for each bird. So for the tall bird, it was all line work, alternating colors, line work, and then I did a solid head. For my medium-sized bird, I did a solid tail feathers. I did this circle pattern. I just alternated it. I had a polka dot body. Maybe I should have made polka dots on the head. And then for my last one, I just kind of filled the color in. I made a little scratchy, and I gave him a little red crest, or her, the little bird, and then I left the rest white. I also left all of their beaks white, I noticed, but I might not do that on mine. I might make my beaks black. I'm not sure. We'll see. Let's see how it goes. All right, so we'll do one bird together, and then I'll let you guys work on the other two birds, and then we'll come back and see what we did. All right. So I'm going to kind of do the same thing I did with my other bird, because I really like that, which is the stripes or the little line work. And you'll notice with the pen, you get some really nice thin lines. They don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to press very hard. Actually, the less hard you press, the lighter your touch, the nicer the line will be. It doesn't get so thick. It's a little skinnier. So I'm putting all my dark color at the back of the bird, and then I'm alternating it somewhat in here. Okay, so I'm going to make this guy, these two, these gel pens. I love gel pens because they have a lot of fun colors, but they do dry up rather quickly. Okay, so there's that. Let's try that. Now let's get a little bit of the light color going. You'll notice it's quite dramatic. For the bird, since I'm only using two colors, I really do try to focus on getting two colors that are really very different. They might be from the same family, like let's say in the orange family, but one is very light and one generally is much darker, just to make some contrast and make it kind of interesting. I'll do the middle one. I'm kind of staying in a similar direction. This is a more diagonal line. The other ones were more vertical. Might be kind of interesting to go in different directions. Since I'm doing all line work, might be interesting to go in different directions. You can try that. And then for the last few ones. Now remember that this is the body, not the feathers, so you want to do something different with this. And the more I go over it, I can make this darker by just going over it more and more and more and more. Still looks like lines, but you can see how much darker it is than up here. I might have to make the top a little darker. I'm trying not to do short strokes. I'm trying to keep the pen on the page from one black line to the next black line, because that'll keep the markings really nice and even. Go over some of these because I like it a little darker. Okay, so him, do I want to do a dark head on him, or do I want to do, a light head. I think I'll do the lighter color head on him, just because it's kind of splashy. And I'm gonna try to get that all the way filled in. And let's hope. Or maybe I will do what I did on my last assignment, where I combined the two colors. That might be kind of interesting. I'll leave him with a more intensely colored crest. Okay. So, and I think I'll leave his tummy white like I did before. All right. So now I have to do my medium-sized bird and my little bird. Okay. So this is where your own imagination comes in. You can turn off or pause the video and just create your own patterns for the two, or when I come back and I show you what I did, you can copy what I did. Okay? All right, so I have finished the coloring of the other two birds. I kind of stuck with my original design, made a few changes, put the polka dots on the medium bird's head, made the crest a little different, just changed some things up. But we're done, and I think it looks great. I'll show you this one. Really kind of different feelings with the fluorescent coloring versus kind of the regular red coloring. But I do like using the pencil a little bit on the sidewalk. That makes this pop out less, kind of pushes it back, grounds it. I like the cracks. I think that's an beneficial add. And I like the outlining in the dark color. You notice on here it's just the pencil. So I do think that that kind of makes it a little sharper and crisper. So have fun with this, guys. So after we finished everything, we've laid in the birds in the background. I just wanted to go over one more thing before we end, and that is if you wanted to create a story about your birds, I wanted to just review those questions that I gave to the younger kids a little earlier in the video. And that is, you can go right on the other side of your assignment. And my question prompts are, what are their names? Where are they going? And why is the little bird looking back? So you don't have to use these questions. You can create your own story of why the birds are going down the sidewalk, what they're doing. But if you wanted to use the prompts, you could. And if you finished and you wrote a little story, either way, I'd love to see your finished piece and your story. Just send it to me on Fresh Schools if you are one of my community students. All right? Have fun, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.